pattern is going to be a kind of like a glass-like midge. Really nice pattern, easy to tie, very few materials, and it's really effective. So I've got myself a size 18 hook in the vise. It's kind of a scud hook. I'm using a white GSP thread just so that I can keep a really thin profile on this, which I like to do with my midge patterns. And we're just starting our thread out here, and I'm only going to take a few turns down, and we're going to add our first material. And our first material is going to just be some flashabou, kind of in a pearl color. I've got 2 strands of it because it's very thin, narrow. I'm going to go ahead and attach that with a couple of thread wraps here. I'm going to pull that backwards a little bit. Go ahead and move forward a little, secure those down. And then we're going to secure this around the bend of the hook with our thread. I'll turn my thread counterclockwise a little bit just to flatten it out, which will help just keep a nice clean profile on this. Trying to avoid the hook point. Being GSP, it's probably not necessarily going to break if I hit the hook point, but if you've tied with GSP before, one thing it will do is it'll fray, which I really don't want this to do. So got that secured back down where I want it at the bend of the hook. I'm just going to travel up forward, securing down those butt ends, and then leaving my thread where I'm going to tie this off after I move those pieces of flashabou. So just to make this a little bit easier on myself, I've gone ahead and put my bobbin in the bobbin cradle. And I'll hold those 2 pieces of flashabou straight out. I want to go ahead and take a couple of wraps, or at least the first wrap, down on the shank of the hook, not on the thread wraps. And then I'm going to slowly work my way forward. This can be a little bit slippery, so I'm going to be a little bit deliberate here. Slow and careful is what I mean by deliberate. I do want to avoid the hook point with this flashabou because it'll cut right through this mylar material. If you hold these fairly tight, it's a pretty strong material. It'll help keep the 2 pieces from separating from one another. I still have a good chance of these separating on me, just because they always do. I take those up till I'm about 2 eye lengths away from the eye of the hook. Go ahead and remove our thread from our bobbin cradle and move our cradle out of the way. And with that, while I'm still holding tension on these so they don't come unwound, go ahead and take a couple of wraps over the top of them to help secure them in place. I'll bend them backwards a little bit, take a few wraps in front of it. Maybe if I can make it happen, I'll take a wrap or 2 on top of that going back just to make sure they're very secure, and then I can just come on in with my scissors and cut off the excess balance. So to enhance the shine of this a little bit, I'm going to add a thin coat of UV resin. I'm just going to be careful and make sure I've got all of this covered. Check both sides. Make sure it's extending down around the base of the hook here. I'll clean off my bodkin here and just kind of clean off excess. Don't necessarily need a lot of this on here. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit it with my UV torch. We'll kind of finish the fly off here by tying in a peacock herl. Let's spin our thread counterclockwise just so I'm not fighting it, wanting to jump over the eye. I want to jump backwards. I'll pull that back a little bit just so I'm not having to have too many of those fibers going over the eye of the hook. I'll have a few, and we'll have to clean them up a little bit. Then I just want to make sure I've got a nice, even platform for that peacock herl to lay down. I'm actually going to take a few extra thread wraps here, just behind the eye, because I'm going to use my rotary feature on my vise. And that thread is going to come unwound, which is what I want, but you want to add a few extra thread wraps before you do that. I'm going to go ahead and hold that peacock herl straight up. We're going to get our first wrap here. Making a full circle, and then I want to just take touching wraps of this peacock herl moving forward. That'll just about do us. I'm going to go ahead and go around some of those fibers there, trapping this peacock herl down with a thread wrap or two up over the top of it. Pull it a little bit backwards. We'll take a few thread wraps in front of it, right behind the eye of the hook. Once I have that fairly secure, I'll just pull it, break it off. It's going to give me the cleanest break that I can get. I'm going to take some wraps, just kind of exaggerating over the eye of the hook, letting my thread slide backwards a little bit to capture some of those fibers of the peacock herl. With that, I'm just going to give myself some extra thread. We're right now in a great position to whip finish and finish this pattern off. So I'll grab my whip finisher. Go ahead and we're going to take a few wraps right behind the eye. But then I'm going to move backwards so that I have my head a little bit thicker, moving towards the peacock herls, and not so much near the eye. Go ahead and release our thread from our whip finisher, trying to avoid as many of those fibers as I possibly can, grabbing my thread cutting tool now. With that, there you have it. Really simple midge pattern. Glass, kind of a glassy midge with a peacock herl front. Quick to tie, effective pattern. Throw yourself a hook in your vise. Give this one a shot.